Right, hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, let's talk about a major update to Monster Hunter Outlanders. Okay, buddy. Okay, recently we got an announcement by the Outlander developers, right? Talking about the changes they'll be implementing after the closed beta. So, okay, some of the changes are pretty major. So yeah, but most of them comes in a positive way. So yeah. Okay, like for example, they're removing half of the gacha feature, for example. So, but anyways, okay, but let's get into the actual update itself, right? So, but yeah, so this is they have the Outlanders optimization plan, right? So, but there is just going through the beta. First is they're talking about the combat changes, I guess. Okay, but the combat and action updates first. Okay, but so yeah, but first they're basically toning down okay what was it the actions for it. Okay, but okay, mainly part of the lock on the target lock on from the players. Okay, but they're also toning down the spammy monster attack for it. So but yeah, okay, in a way this will make the combat more deliberate. Okay, and less spammy for both the players and the monsters. Okay, but so yeah, it's pretty good changes. But personally, I do like the monster attack spam because now you're required to know which monster attack has enough window for you to do certain move. But yeah, that's pretty much what where they are changing it, I guess. But so yeah, okay, and then next is they're also trying to change the growth scaling. So okay, of the game, I guess. Okay, in the closed beta, okay, the growth scaling does go kinda crazy. Okay, so the numbers definitely goes way really hard, right? Okay, but I mean it's scaled properly, but at the same time okay, some of the lower gear hunters basically do way less damage. So but yeah, so I guess lowering the growth scaling is a good thing. So there will be less difference between okay, stronger gear and lower level gear. So there is that. Buffing the main character next though, it's kinda weird because the main character is practically the strongest character in the beta. Okay, but so yeah, they kinda don't really need buffs per se. Okay, but so yeah, most of the beta leaderboard is basically also filled with just the main character. But not complaining, I guess. I mean at the same time a lot of us would rather just play our own main character. So it's not a bad thing to actually have that, I guess. Okay, but the devs did say that they wanted basically the characters to be more of okay, just the alternate way to play the game, I guess, rather than them being just a straight up upgrade. So but yeah, but again, this is really good news for us, especially for us that prefers to play the main character like a normal Monster Hunter. Okay, but so yeah, and then they're also adding the scaling between solo to 4 players, right? Okay, but that's also a good thing. Okay, but we didn't have this in the beta, so it's kind of weird that we're doing a 4-man scaling hunt when you're soloing or something like that. So but yeah, so again, okay, pretty good update again on this side. So okay, but yeah, okay, next is the next a major thing, which is the gameplay and progression side of it. So but yeah, okay, it's a mobile game for it, but it seems they're also making the hunt longer, I guess. But yeah, they're making the hunt longer, but also giving more rewards for it. So yep, they're also adding more high difficulty hunt, which is a good thing. So yeah, most of the hunt in the game are usually are on the faster side, I guess. Okay, except for the high difficulty one. So more high difficulty hunt is better. Okay, because that's more in line to how the Monster Hunter experience is supposed to be, I guess. But so yeah, so there is that. Okay, they're also removing the redundant progression system, I guess. Okay, but for example ability levels. Okay, but okay, the changes here both are actually really good. Okay, for it. Okay, but so yeah, again, first the hunt becoming longer. Okay, and more in line with how Monster Hunter feels, right? So But yeah, and removing redundant like progression system like makes like weapon and armor crafting system becomes more important, I guess. Okay, because like there is less side progression and more about like the equipment. So, but yeah, which is also in line with the true essence of like Monster Hunter, right? So, so again, okay, really good changes like all around like for it. So, but yeah, next category, okay, which is like basically this is mainly quality of life, I guess. Okay, but so yeah, so like just the usual like progression, unlocking stuff like earlier, so it's a good thing. Okay, but yeah, but then like this is where like one of the biggest changes happening, I guess. But so yeah, which is like the removal of like half of the gacha system. So yep, so TLDR, right at the start you have not at the start, basically you have like gacha that like basically you gacha for the characters that you play as, right? But then you also have gacha for like the buddies. The buddies are like the palico and stuff like that. So but yeah, and like these gacha buddies, right? Like so basically this is two, right? They're removing one of them. So basically half of the gacha is like removed. So the TLDR, okay, these like buddies are like similar to like basically how, okay, what was it, a signature weapon, I guess, in other games. So they basically have like they buff like the hunters like by around 60% damage or like a plus with a very specific like scenario. Okay, but the specific scenario is something like let's say, okay, the delayed like longsword hit, for example, right? So there is a buddy there that basically buffs your like damage by 60% whenever you trigger that, which means it's kind of locked to like only longsword, right? So but yeah, but okay, having to gacha for that really sucks in the beta, and I guess like everyone like puts like the feedback, right? So did I. But yeah, and I guess they listen and they are removing like that one. So yep. So now instead of like basically having to gacha for that, we have like basically a free like a way to like just get them. So it's basically becomes like a progression system, I guess. Okay, but yep, like upgrading your like a palico, I guess. Okay, but rather than like having to gacha for them again. Okay, major change in a really good way. So yep. So there is like that one. The less gacha, the better for us, obviously. So there is that as well. Okay, but so now like instead of like gachaing for like the characters and the body, now you just basically like gacha for the characters, and like the characters again, as they said like before, right? They're just trying to make it an alternate way to play the game. Okay, but so yeah, again, really good change. Okay, but and then of course like they're giving like more like free stuff right there, free like SSR adventurer, okay, free like SSR like a buddy. So yep, but we can get that for free anyway now, so it's fine, right? It's mainly for the character now. Okay, but yeah, and more like free stuff to like upgrade. Again, more free stuff is like a good shit, man. So can't say no to that. Okay, buddy. So yeah, and that's mainly like the major changes. The rest of these are improving the UI stuff, like performance, right? Like visual stuff, okay, fixing bugs. But yeah, so we'll take like all of this good stuff. So, but yeah, but that's basically like the major changes like for like the upcoming game, I guess. But so yeah, so that basically covers like all the changes like the Outlanders devs are like making to like the game. Okay, but yeah, since I played through the game like the entire beta and basically knows the in and out of the game, right? So if you have like more questions, like feel free to like ask away, man. So but yeah, but in summary, they're making the hunt like more like meaningful, both in combat and the time spent in the hunt as well. So really good changes. Okay, they're making progression leans more toward equipment. Okay, but so also a good change and like more in line towards like the Monster Hunter experience. Okay, but and the big thing is removing half of the gacha system, so you can focus on like the hunters like instead. So yeah, which balance wise should really only provide like alternate way to play the game rather than the gacha characters being a direct upgrade, I guess. Okay, but so yeah, there is like that. Okay, but anyways, bro, okay, that basically covers all the changes for the game. So if you have more questions, like feel free to ask and I'll answer the best I can. Okay, but so anyway, guys, okay, that's it for me for today. Okay, I'll see you guys on the next one then.